In Belfast with the one and only Mr. Luka Bloom.
A legend in his own lunchtime.
You are indeed. How are you?
I'm very well.
You've just come rushing straight from a sound check. You're doing the Fail Out tonight in West
Fail
Belfast.
on Pobble tonight and had a great sound check with Grada and with Damien Dempsey.
Right, yeah.
So it'll be a good night.
Good name. So every time I see you, you always seem to be constantly touring and touring and touring. Do you not get fed up with all the dates?
Well, I suppose because I meet you when I'm touring, it seems like I'm touring all the time, but I actually take a lot of time off.
Right.
I don't write songs on the road, so I have to take a lot of time off to do that. And the only way for me not to get sick of touring is to stop doing it regularly.
Right. You're one of these great artists as well who can go from playing massive venues across Europe and stuff, then coming back to Ireland and doing the little intimate pubs and things. Do you enjoy the intimate gigs a lot more than the big ones, or which one's easier to do?
I love them both. I mean, big shows, big festivals, big halls have an energy and a dynamic all of their own that you kind of tap into.
Yeah.
There's an energy going on and you just sort of show up, plug in and tap into it.
Yeah.
Whereas when you do your own tour and your own gigs, people are coming to see you.
Yeah.
So that's a different experience.
Yeah.
I do love the intimate shows, actually, and it's mainly in Ireland that I do places like the Spirit Store in Dundalk, you know, places like that. They would be the ones closest to Belfast that I'd be thinking of. They're all different for different reasons. They're all fun for different reasons. There are a couple of countries where I do really, really well, and Australia happens to be one of them, which is great for me because I love it.
Yeah.
It's very much a mutual love affair.
Right. And is it a big kind of Irish community out there that come to see you, or do the Aussies come along and see the gigs as well?
The Irish were probably the last community to come and check me out in Australia, because in 1990 and 1991 there were a couple of songs of mine, one from Riverside called Delirious and another one from the next album, The Acoustic Motorbike, which was a rap cover I did called I Need Love.
The first time I ever heard you, it's still one of my favourite covers of all time, I have to say. So, yeah.
It was a top 20 hit in Australia. Yeah. And the first time I went to Australia, that song was in the charts. And so I went to this 2,000-seater theatre and it was sold out. And that was my first gig in the Southern Hemisphere. And, you know, it's an amazing thing. I mean, it's sort of, on a smaller scale, it's like what happened to David Gray in Ireland. Yeah. Where, you know, he just arrived in Ireland and this explosion happened, and then little by little it happened elsewhere. Well, that's what happened to me in Australia on a smaller scale.
All right. Now, talking about I Need Love, what was it that made you want to do that? Were you a rap music fan at that time, or was it just something in the song you heard and you felt?
I was living in New York, and this was the music I was hearing everywhere. I didn't really know anything about rap music or hip-hop before I went to America, but when I was living in New York, you know, wherever I am, I pick up on what's happening on the street or what's happening in the environment. If I'm in the country, I'm affected by that, and if I'm in New York, I'm going to be affected by what I hear. And so I did make a conscious decision to go in search of my way into that world, because I'm not obviously never going to be a rapper. The gold chains just wouldn't suit me, you know. But I did go in search of a song, and when I found that song, it's the most incredible song. The lyrics of that song are phenomenal, and it was probably the most difficult song I ever learned. Before The Keeper of the Flame, I'd been with Sony, and before that I was with Warner Brothers. And when I decided to become an independent working artist, the first album I decided would have to be something that was just fun to make, that I didn't have a huge emotional input into. And I just decided to, why not do an album of songs that would challenge me to see, can you do a Cure song, can you do an ABBA song, can you do a Bob Marley song, and go a Radiohead song, go right across the spectrum of contemporary music and see what I can do with it. I had a ball making that record, and a lot of people really liked it.
You've got a new album out as well.
Innocence, it's called.
Yes. Where did the inspiration come for the songs on this album?
A couple of years ago, I moved back to my native Kildare, built a house halfway between Naas and Rathangan in the middle of the bog, where I'm now the only creature in the area making noise. And it's the first time in my life I succeeded in recording an album in the same room where the songs were written. So that's the vibe of this record, that the songs on this record were written in the room where the songs were recorded. And that's it's a very special feeling for me of this record. I take a long time to do them, but I'm actually working on 3 albums in my head at the moment. I've got 3 albums in here at the moment. Whether all 3 of them will be released or whether all 3 of them will end up being one, I don't know. But there are 3 things going on in my head that I'd love to see come to fruition.
Great stuff. Now, talk about your family and stuff. You obviously came from a musical family. I mean, Christy Moore is your brother as well. Did you ever consider working with Christy at any stages?
No. I mean, I don't consider it, but sometimes it happens it usually only ever happens around a charity gig or something
right,
like that,
yeah.
because we're really different.
Yeah.
Our styles of music are different, and our show is very different. The
Yeah.
way we play, the way we sing, and it's really incredible that even though we're from the same family, we don't have a huge amount in common musically.
Right.
Every now and then we come across a song that we can do together that really works, but not enough to sustain a show.
Right.
I did some gigs with him last year, and we do maybe 2 or 3 songs together, but that's it.
What age were you when you started writing songs?
12.
Do you remember the first song you ever wrote?
It's the second time I've been asked this question today.
Really?
Today, yeah. The first song I wrote would have been a very sad, silly love song. And probably every song I've written since then has been pretty much the same. You're so in awe of the feeling of being able to create a song, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You've nothing to compare it with.
Right.
You know, you're just getting something out and all your mates think you're Bob Dylan.
Right, yeah.
And it's fantastic, you know. It's only as it goes on later that you become more self-critical, more self-conscious, that it begins to get tricky.
Right.
But actually the easiest songs, some of the easiest songs I wrote were the very first ones.
All right. Okay. And the name Luka Bloom, where did that come from?
1986, I went to New York and I decided to give myself an anonymous identity for my work.
Right.
That would be separate from my personal life. Yeah. And Suzanne Vega had just released this song, My Name is Luka. And James Joyce had this book called Ulysses, and there was a character in it called Molly Bloom. And
right.
so I wanted a professional name like Bono or Sting or The Edge, something that would be easy to remember, that would be completely pretentious.
Great stuff. Now, there's loads of Irish singer-songwriters doing very well at the minute. Who would your favourites be?
I think a lot of them are very good. A lot of the ones that I know are really great. And what I like about them is that they're different from each other.
Yeah.
They're not all, you know... Sometimes it feels like a little bit in Ireland that we're suffering a little bit from post-David Gray traumatic stress disorder. But yet there are some of these guys that are really great and really different. I mean, a lot of Damien Rice's stuff is great. Damien Dempsey's great. Paddy Casey's great. Glenn Hansard is great. They're all great, you know.
You've done some work with
Mudley's
Glenn recently
great
as well, haven't you?
Well, we're good buddies, so whenever we can, we get together and just sing a song or two together.
All right. Great stuff. Well, Luka, thanks for doing this.
My
and
pleasure.
good luck with the show tonight and for all the touring.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for waiting for me.